just to report a miracle yeah, so my mother went, my mother, she's just returned from hospital with heart failure. And her legs, one of her legs was really, really swollen up with oedema. And she went to the GP, very painful, and the GP said to her, he looked at her notes and said, I'm sorry you had such a hard time with heart failure. And but he said, there's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do. He didn't even say water tablets or anything. There's nothing we can do, it's your heart. So, and so she came back, and I was like, also on the level of beliefs, to sort of say to somebody who's got their legs swollen, there's nothing we can do medically, just because of your heart. I thought it was a little bit, there's no hope in that, there's no hope. And with beliefs, even the doctors know that there's a placebo effect. Just by saying this is probably going to help, and it's a sugar-coated pill, about 20-30% of patients just recover if you just give them anything. Like if you give them a Smartie and say it's the latest drug.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. Yes,
so I was a bit, So, and I thought, intuitively, for some reason, it doesn't feel right. I didn't feel it resonated to say I cancel my belief that my mother has oedema and heart failure and infinite being subject. And then I sort of prayed into it, and the inspiration comes to use lesson 14 from A Course in Miracles. That would be really better. So I did, and it felt like, intuitively, it felt very, very strong. God did not create oedema in my mother's legs, so it's not real. And it felt really, really strong when I said it. And God did not create heart failure in my mother, so it's not real. And so I was doing that, and then I shared it with some people where I go to the 12-step rooms, and we were like in little groups doing it. Anyway, within, on the second day, like I went down to see my mother, and she was really, really enthusiastic. She said that the swelling had gone down in her leg, and she was showing me her leg, and the pain had gone down. And that was after just 2 days of doing it, and obviously, I guess we're all linked spiritually, and she must have somehow, I didn't say anything to her, but somehow I think she somehow picked it up that something had happened. So yeah, I checked with her, that was I think yesterday. Today I said, is it still okay? And she said, yeah, it's still reduced.
Wow.
So there's great power, and I feel, so I want to report that miracle, and I'm quite enthusiastic about lesson 14, God, for others. I cancel for myself, but for others God didn't create it, and that really worked. And what Hawkins described with loss or of any type, the way he described it, and it's also borne out in my own experience, it's like the issue in the beginning, it's like, to make it really, really simplistic, it's a little bit like I could be born and I've already got several cylinders of suppressed feelings. I can have I might be born and I might have a tank with 75 units of fear, and a tank with 70 units of shame and guilt. And these feelings are often connected with projected ideas out into the external world, and they're related. So for me, that's the karma or the lessons that need to be transcended. So they're linked. So, like for example, the loss of a person is as I said, it's like it pulls up, it opens up the canister of losing people. So each time you lose the first time you lose a person, it's like there can be an overwhelm of feelings that come up. And actually, for me, even which I've shared many times, it's just I was a food addict. So often, when I would have loss of any type, like the first, I had a baby pigeon which I brought up and died, and I was about 20 then. And as soon as that sadness came up, that it was dead, it was like I instinctively I made a big pan of potatoes, and then I was eating these potatoes with butter, and just eating these potatoes and eating these potatoes because the feeling was coming up of grief and sadness of the.
Were they new potatoes?
Well, they weren't brand new out of the manured soil out in the garden. So they were a bit older than that. They were a bit older. They've been stacked in the kitchen for a little while, so not that new. But I don't know if the it's good. I can't remember exactly what brand, what type, the King Edwards.
Not that you would care anyway.
No,
as long as there was a lot of carbohydrate.
Yes, exactly. A lot of carbohydrate and butter. I just made sure. So that for me doesn't really work. So you just have more and more suppressed feelings. So it might have had like 70 units of suppressed grief already to deal with, and that would have just meant I now have 75 units of suppressed grief that I had not done. So once I realised that, it's like, especially being in 12-step fellowship, you've got to, when feelings come up, use spiritual tools. One of them being allowing the feelings to process through without using in any way any kind of activity or behaviour which suppresses feelings. So once I realised that, it's like, grief is just like the tank of grief just gets opened up every time there's a loss. But if you don't use in any way and you go through, it's like you have 60 units of grief left over. And the next time you lose a person, which opens up that same projection of losing a person, then the cycle tends to be a lot faster, and you process through the feelings and you get over it faster. And actually, and as each time you do that, and then you can get over it faster and faster and faster. And at higher levels, it's recontextualized as to what is the person and what am I is recontextualized. And also it's seen differently. At the lower levels, it's when you've got a lot of suppressed feelings, it's like they are life. So when you lose them, it's like life's not worth living, because it was like that was the source of life. I was so attached, and this person meant so much to me. And I go to fellowships with relationships, and there, people often feel suicidal, like they want to kill themselves, because there's just so much attachment and feelings that haven't been felt out. But when you lose someone, it's like life and death. There's no point to live. If you're more advanced than that and have felt out feelings, then it can be like a moderate, like a normal person might have. For an addict, it can be life and death. So they sort of see, well, I might as well not live and commit suicide, because that was the point of my life. For a normal person, it's like the grief cycle of going through the emotions will be a lot faster, and they won't feel necessarily suicidal, but of course they will feel, they will go through the grief cycle of feelings. And then as you get to more advanced levels, then it's like the process can become very, very quick. I remember Hawkins saying, that he still had attachments, but he can get over them in seconds now. Because if you're always staying in the present moment and not giving energy to attachment to external things, then more or less the allegiance is to the present moment. So you don't pick up very big attachments, if that's the consistent way of being. However, normal people will get attached, that's natural. But for addicts, like I was, then anything that I symbolically project as really, really important becomes life and death, because there's nothing else. It seems like life and death, and you have to use an extreme coping mechanism or think of committing suicide to get out. So for me, it's like so for me, it's always to feel out the feelings purely. I mean, the process I do with something like grief is just I will pray. And I may use the Course in Miracles lessons to help. I would probably use something like a pray for a miracle to the Holy Spirit to help me see the situation differently, so I get a different context. There's so much grief because of partly because of the suppressed feeling, partly the symbolic meaning of how I'm interpreting the situation at that stage. So it's like initially in the low levels, it can be like they mean everything, and it's like it's the loss of everything, and it's like it's hopeless. And then as you feel out those feelings, then it becomes like they're going to be okay, I'm going to be okay, or they've gone to a place where they'll be fine if they've died. Or if it's a relationship, you have, as you let go, it's more self-centered, you want them for yourself, but as you get over, you wish them well, and you pray that they'll be happy, and then you also trust. It's also a place of scarcity. So at the lower levels, it's like, without them, I can't live. Or, what's the point without them? When you get to the higher levels, it's like there's more of a feeling they'll be okay and I'll be okay. Or even if they've died, there's somehow an intuition that they're okay and I'll be okay. And the universe is loving. So that would be at the loss of something. That would be one of my prime things, would actually be to sit with my feelings. And I share about it regularly. It's just not to label, but just to be present with the feelings. And it's like, there might be a wave of grief, then there might be a wave of anger, and then there might be eventually, and then the acceptance and peace once that's released. And so for me, it's like every time I lose something, it's symbolically representing something, like someone dying or the loss of breakup of a relationship. And so I take the opportunity to process it out, to feel out the feelings, and to be in contact with them. And for me, it's just opening up a doorway to suppressed feelings within. So if I take that, then the next time, again, I'm hit with it in life, it'll be a lot faster. And I also have the capacity to move through it.
Yeah.
It's a great question on developing how do you process things out while in a relationship. For me, the way that's done is it's processing out the feelings. Processing out the feelings, and for me, I've shared about this many times in this group with my mother. And it was applying all of the Course in Miracles lessons, doing 12 steps, and Hawkins and Muji, all simultaneously. And my intention with her was unconditional love. Unconditional love meaning to just love her without wanting or needing anything from her, and accepting her completely as she is. And that was the intention. Now, everyone knows what it's like to have that with your mother. Because we all have human karma. Mothers know how to press every single button on the planet. And partners do. Romantic partners also have the capacity to press every single button. So that's great, because the commitment then is to unconditional love. And they will do things eventually to trigger you. And then you have to process that out. And, if my mother was to say something like, what have you done with your life? Then that's... So for me, the thing is there, even using the Course in Miracles, there's several things. One is that I may have an emotional charge of anger, or it could be any feeling, negative feeling. So it'll be then not to layer it onto them, but then I might go into my room and feel out the anger. I actually do the Course in Miracles on it as well, because for me, it's that I made her meaningful for her to be able to have that effect on me. So I'd say, my mother's voice is just as meaningful as hearing a bird tweet. There's no difference. If I hear a bird tweeting outside in the garden, I don't suddenly become angry. So I projected meaning onto her vocal, her tone. So I just say it's not meaningful. And also, like if a random stranger said, "What have you done to me in your life?" That's, so what? But if it's my mother, I projected so much symbolic meaning onto her as being a source of... I projected the qualities of a higher power, made her special. So she's like godlike, she's the source of my love, and if she disapproves, it's like God disapproves of me. So it's like a huge disconnect. So I'm working on that while still being in the relationship, and still going in, processing out the energy of it, feel out the feelings, and then go back in there. And I've shared many times, I'd offer her, she could be, tell me all kinds of things, and then I'd listen to her, I'd be witnessing what she's saying, and then I would offer her a cup of tea. And I did that, and it took some years, because I live with my parents, I live with my mother. And now we have a great time, you know, until recently. I mean, she's come back from hospital. We were playing Snakes and Ladders, watching Disney films together. And that was just because now I have the capacity to offer her unconditional love. I don't expect or want anything from her, you see. So that then means that you have the capacity to be loving, but not to be affected by them or want or need anything from them. So there's the two aspects. One is I would actually do the Course in Miracles on them, because they, you know, he will eventually do something that will make you angry or upset you. You know, eventually it will happen. So that means you get an opportunity at that point to feel out the feelings and then make that event meaningless. Then you go back in and then you commit to being of unconditional, using your spiritual intuition, not stupid unconditional love, you know, intuitive, wise unconditional love. But you go that you're loving, but eventually you find that those things he used to do that trigger you no longer affect you. And then you keep doing that, keep doing the Course in Miracles, keep going back, and then you'll find less things trigger you. And actually you'll find that you don't the projection of meaning to him will have rapidly reduced. You'll be more present. So for me, like, unconditional love means that when you're with your boyfriend, you're 100% present. But the second he's, you know, like enlightened people, the second they're gone, they're in the next moment. You see, it's like they're 100% present with the partner. But in the next moment, when they go out and walk in the garden, that them and the history and the memory is forgotten, because you're in the next present moment. You see, so you practice presence, take out the meaning. Anytime they trigger you, it's an opportunity to make it meaningless, but also to feel out the feelings. And then, you know, like if they say anything, like they probably have something that, I'm sure that he does have something that will trigger you, because that's the world we're living in.
Yes.
So, so as soon as he does, and then the next time he says that thing, you'll know how far you've come by how much you've felt out that feeling. So if it makes you angry for like 20 minutes and you're furious, next time if you're only like angry 10 minutes, then that's huge progress, you see. And then if you get to the point of perfection, where there's nothing he can say and do, and you feel present and kind and loving. For me, when you get to higher spiritual states, they're actually spiritual states, they're not dualistic. So it's like there's a field of presence and love, which is unconditional. It's not like a me that's loving you, or a me that needs love from you. It's just like a generous field of love that is continually present. So it's a great opportunity to be in a relationship and do that. But, you know, to practice everything, you know, for you that would be appropriate. In a breakup, you know, it might be different, the context of what you need to do. Because you might get the idea, if you there's what I call naive unconditional love, which is not yet development of wisdom, where you think unconditional love is just being there for one individual person, no matter what, which for me, you're not yet at a higher spiritual context of a higher level of meaning in that way. But while you're in the relationship, that's what I do. And that's what I've done with my mother. It's like, essentially the hidden thing I had within me is to be loving and to want nothing in return. And to be loving and to not be able to be affected by anything the other person says or does. And so for me it's like that the thing of nothing in the external world has power to disconnect you unless you project meaning onto it. You know, so what I realized is if my mother used a certain vocal tone and a certain vocal tone on me, and sort of made remarks about how my life wasn't going as it should be, like you should be married, you should, you know, what are you doing with your career, you know, all of those things, because it seemed like that could disconnect me, and I'd feel really upset and angry. But I knew at some level, because you know of the spiritual work, that if a random stranger on the street suddenly said, "Look, you know, what are you doing with your life?" It'd be like, how quickly could I get over that? Well, you know, I could get over that very, very quickly. So what's the difference? Is the difference the words that the person used, Or is the difference the projected meaning I'm giving to my mother? So I give a lot of meaning to certain people's voice tone. Can really disconnect me. I give a lot of meaning to a certain person's image, whereas another person, it's like it doesn't disconnect me. So the power can't be in the person to suddenly disconnect me. It must be my internal projections and my internal suppressed emotions which are creating the disconnection. But the intention is, for me as well, there's a big thing with the Course in Miracles, which is my view, which is that if you let go of attachments and you process out feelings, you don't become a zombie. Because if the intention, because for me, the Course says that we're removing the blocks to love. We're removing the blocks to love. The ego says, I am the source of love. My thinkingness and my feelings of attachment is the source of how you can love and get love.
You definitely get the sense that if you remove your identity, you won't click with that person, or something won't be there to be of love, and it's like the opposite.
It's the opposite. So most people don't want to let go. Actually, the paradox, as I've shared, even making my mother meaningless, I made her meaningless so that what I was trying to make meaningless for me was my ego representations of her. But my trust and my faith and my spiritual experience is that the source of who I am is love. What I'm letting go, what the Course is trying to let go of within me, is my ego's symbolic projections of what the world should be. But for me, if you let all of that go, all that is remaining is love. So it's like the prayer of St. Francis, is to be, you're then an instrument of what's left. What's left is not nothing. What's left is pure love, which is orchestrated in the present moment by divinity, through what's left. So there's the great fear that if you make someone meaningless, then you'll have no capacity, or you just let them be cold. But that for me is just another belief system that has to be let go of. That if you let go of this, you'll be cold, because that's another belief, and then you will be cold. Because that's the idea that if you let go of all your attachments, then there'll be nothing left, you won't exist, and there's nothing. For me, if you let go of all the beliefs around it, then your capacity for love increases. And you're less dependent. Your capacity to love unconditionally increases, and your dependency and your capacity to be disconnected by the external. So being in a relationship is great, because they will trigger you. And actually, and if they don't trigger you and there's nothing they can do that trigger you, then you're going to have a wonderful time with them, and life will find something else to put you. As you all know, I'm an addict. And in the beginning, for me, it's like identifying what are my addictions, and then there's a period of transcending them, or going through the withdrawal of the feelings. And as was said, like for example, with food, if I had the craving for food in between my meal times, it would be not to eat, but just to sit with that feeling. And I'm a recovered food addict, and for 7 years now, and I haven't had food obsession for years now by doing a certain technique, which was just mentioned, which is that any time I had a craving, I sat with it and felt it out. And then eventually you get to a point when you don't get cravings for food any longer.
Yeah, I'm just curious, because you have to eat.
Yes.
Do you just choose better? Is that how, it gets out? I would miss my chocolate.
It's an interesting thing. I mean, how I do it. Well, because I'm a food addict. It was a major drug for me. Is that in the beginning how I did it, and I share it. I shared it. One of my sponsees, I remember, I told her the techniques to get over food addiction, and within about 3 months, she had absolutely no food obsession. It was absolutely astonishing, and she was in an amazing place by doing what I told her. But this happens for everything, whether it be food, whether it be a relationship, whether it be shopping, whether it be whatever it is, needing to be thin or needing to look sexy or whatever it is. So whatever is projected with so much craving, it's a field of craving. When you're in there, it's like that thing is so important and you crave it. So you're in the field of, it's actually desire, 125, we're vibrating at the field of desire where you always want something because you don't feel enough as you are. So with the food, okay, you asked me about the food. So with the food, it was like, I'd heard of Hawkins, and I knew it was possible to get full transcendence of it, where you just don't get any attraction or desire for food. So the thing was, of course, in the beginning, was definitely I had to cut out any food which I was getting a high addictive payoff from. So something like chocolate, chocolate would be something. I'll tell you, one of them was actually donuts. I really like bags of donuts. Every food addict is slightly different. It's not always chocolate. So I like bags of donuts. I also like Big Macs as well. I had varieties. But anyway, donuts, so bag of donuts. So it'd be like I cut out all the foods, made a list of all the foods that I had a very, very strong craving for, and they were not allowed. So then I have to go through the withdrawal. It's like you can't have those. And then you feel out the withdrawal. And then after you've gone through the withdrawal, like for donuts, you don't want them any longer. It's like you haven't had them for a long time. You went through the withdrawal cleanly. It's just, it doesn't bother you. I haven't wanted to eat donuts for years. I have no desire for them. But then you're eating, well, I'm still eating 3 meals, well, now I'm eating 2 meals a day. I'm eating my 2 meals a day, but I want, as a food addict, is that, to choose a healthy meal. I have carbohydrate, protein, and veg, but not exciting. It's like it's not exciting. It's not something I'd look forward to. Like you're going to get. It hasn't got any capacity to relieve your feelings. It's not like something, because when you're looking forward to something and getting obsessed by it, it's like there's a lot of projection and there's a lot of suppressed emotions, which is latching on and thinking that's going to give you relief. So if you just sit with it and don't have that, and then if you make all the food you eat healthy, but it's not exciting, and exciting that it can change your state, then eventually you're just eating food functionally, and there's no addictive payoff from it. So then you have to go through all the withdrawal. In the beginning, you have to go through all the withdrawal that food gave you. After that, you just eat your food, and it's, for me, okay, so this is where I describe it. All the energy that was lost in obsession and thinking that this thing could fix you, it gives you life back in the present moment. Because that was actually cutting your connection to the now, with all those suppressed feelings and all that obsession and trying to get a hit out of it, from just being present and happy and connected, being a love radiator. So...
Oh, you can. Or that's it.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Yeah. So... so that's I forgot what I was saying now. So that's so I knew that intuitively, if I just went through the withdrawal, cut out the foods which I projected stuff on, and then made the food just healthy but having no interest value, so I wouldn't obsess about it, meant that I have to feel out all the addictive payoff I was getting out of it, so that I'll get no addictive payoff. And now it's like food just doesn't enter my head as something to look forward to. So I don't, it's not like I'm waiting for my, as soon as I run out here, because afterwards, as an addict, as soon as I'd run out of here, I'd probably be going to a supermarket to get a bag of donuts to get some relief from just the experience of, I don't want to experience my normal state of presence, because I'm not happy right now, so I'd obsess about it, and then I'd get a payoff and some relief. And it'd be like it would have such a magical power, such special powers for me. It'd be like, I feel so horrible, but when I have the donut, I feel so happy for a while, and then and then it fades off. I need to eat more donuts to try and stay happy. So that's the same with the relationship. It's like if you're disconnected from presence and being a love radiator, then that person, or if you're codependent, whichever person it is, gets projected with a huge amount of special qualities. And so when there's a breakup, there's huge disconnection and disruption. But if you feel that out, then eventually, you know, if you're totally free, then you can have relationships. And when a relationship breaks, it's a very mild disconnection, and then you can get into another one, or wait, or even not have a relationship, and it's not a big deal. So I did that with food, and for me, with relationships, it would be like to process out if any type of, not just romantic, any type of relationship ends, process out the feelings. Then, you know, it's like that comes back to being present.
I'd like to share with you a Hare Krishna chant, and you're welcome to sing along if you like.
Okay.
Yes, okay. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Krishna
Lovely.
Thank you.
Wow.
Om Ganesha, Om Ganapati, Om Ganesha, Om Ganapati, 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 Om Ganesha, Om Ganapati, Om Ganesha, Om Ganapati, Ganapati, Om Ganapati, Om Ganapati, Om Ganapati, Om Ganapati, Om Ganapati, Om Ganesha, Om Ganapati, Om Ganesha, Om Ganapati, Ganapati, Om 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 Ganesha, Om Ganapati, Om Ganesha, Om Ganapati, Ganapati, Om 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 Ganesha, Om Ganapati, Om Ganesha, Om Ganapati, Ganapati, Om 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 Ganesha, Om Ganapati, Om Ganesha, Om Ganapati, Ganapati, Om Ganapati, Om Ganapati, Om Ganapati, Om Ganapati, Om Ganapati, Om Ganesha, Om Ganapati, Om Ganesha, Om Ganapati, Ganapati, Om Ganapati, Om Ganapati, Om Ganapati, Om Ganapati, Om Ganesha, Om Ganapati, Thank you.
Thank you.
Very Thank you.
Gurudev